The Final Girls is a 2015 horror comedy about a group of young adults who accidentally get sucked into a 1980s like Friday the 13th style slasher movie and then are part of the movie. It's very much a parody of that era of slasher movies while kind of still being a 1980s style slasher movie. And of course, there's one guy in the group who's kind of a horror movie expert, so as they're stuck in the movie, he knows all the horror tropes and all the rules of what will and won't get them killed and will and won't help them. So it kind of plays out from there. It's a little like Last Action Hero, but with horror movies. I'm a bit of a sucker for this style of movie. I really love horror movies and I really love comedies. So the type of movies that kind of deconstruct horror movies and make fun of them, I always find to be pretty amusing. So this movie is really right up my alley. The one thing I wasn't expecting this movie to be is this movie is shockingly emotional. In all of 2015, it's probably one of the 10 most like emotionally heavy movies I saw all year, which I never would have guessed. It's got a lot of familiar faces in it. I'm going to butcher her name, but I believe it's Tassia Farmiga from American Horror Story is in it. Maybe Funke from Arrested Development is in it. Adam from Workaholics is in it. Thomas Middleditch from Silicon Valley is in it. Malin Ackerman is in the movie. She's been in a lot of stuff. I believe she's in Children's Hospital, and she was definitely in the Watchmen movie from several years back. I enjoyed the movie quite a bit, but when it gets to the third act, it kind of hits a lull and really kind of veers off track and gets a little bit boring in that area of the movie. Unfortunately, that kind of pulled what was a pretty enjoyable movie up to that point down a little bit. I found it to be a pretty amusing parody of the horror genre. I enjoyed it quite a bit up to that point, and although it lost me for a little bit, at the very end it kind of gave me back a little bit. I'm going to give the movie 3 out of 5 ties. I would have liked it to have been higher, but that segment near the end really was a little tough to swallow. Once the movie was over, it was fine, but while I was watching it, it got too slow. I would recommend this movie to horror movie fans, to comedy fans. It's not as good as things like Scream or Cabin in the Woods, but it's a lot less horror than either of those two things. So it is primarily a comedy movie. I wouldn't really call it a horror movie at all. It's a comedy movie that takes place in a horror setting. I would say if you do want to watch the movie, skip the trailer because I think the trailer gives away too much. And if you're not remotely interested in this movie, I would even recommend checking out the trailer. It gives a hint about what I was talking about with the emotional depth, which just seems so out of left field for a horror comedy parody type movie. If you've seen the movie, let me know what you thought of it. I think it's one of those movies that's maybe not the greatest while you're watching it, even though it is pretty enjoyable. But I think it's a lot more fun afterwards, and it's a fun movie to talk about. I thought my friend and I who watched it had a little bit to say about it afterwards. I thought it was a fun movie, and let me know what you thought.